And that's always a question for any public payers. This the clinical benefits versus the cost effectiveness, right? And a lot of times the cost effectiveness may not take into account the other things that you had mentioned, such as quality of life and at least caregiver, like how it impacts the caregivers and the overall society. So since you sit on this CADTH committee, how do you pursue this idea of incorporating those other components into at least their thought process?
Every chance I get. But the reality of it is, I mean, and Costas, you know this, the post market drug evaluation committee doesn't look. I mean, I'm hoping at some point in time that they do start looking at the post market review of the new drugs. That's what hopefully they will do when we talk about managed access agreements and early approvals, so that we can get early access to drugs with, and getting the real world evidence from people who are not within the original clinical trial, and using that evidence to give a final approval for the drug. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that that's where the post market drug evaluation group goes, and if not, that there's a branch off of that does that work. But the reality is, I mean, I think CADTH is doing a lot of good work. I think I mean, they're not doing it. I'm not sure that they're doing it because of rare disease, but they're doing it because the Horizon scan says if we don't get on top of this pretty soon, globally, really, this is precision medicine is coming, and we need to have we have a lot more high cost drugs coming. We have a lot more drugs that are going to be based on or only applicable to very small patient populations, and we have a system that using, and I don't want to get into qualities, but we have a system that bases the price on something that is completely irrelevant and doesn't work within a rare disease community. I mean, just as a basic, again, I'm just going to put it in basic terms. When you have a drug, when I've said this before, and I don't know if I should actually say it this way, but when the job that you do says, and every time that you approve a drug for a rare disease, and you say, yes, we think this drug should be approved and should be given to this group of people, but we're recommending that the price be reduced by 90%. If every one of your recommendations is suggesting that the price needs to be reduced, I think that you either need to ask yourself, is there something wrong with my methodology, or is there something wrong with the drug? You know what I mean? Like, if everything has to be reduced, then there's something wrong. And so I get that, I get that the idea that a lot of these drugs are going to be very, and there are some real, when you talked about $100,000 in today's terms, that is not an expensive drug. I mean, we have rare disease drugs that will cost $1 million or more a year. And so I do understand where, I mean, public payers only have a certain amount of dollars to give. And so it's really, it's not an easy decision to decide which drugs get approved and at what price. But the reality of it is, that isn't going to change. And the system we're currently using isn't working. It's not working. You can't ask every drug manufacturer that comes to the table to reduce the cost of that drug by 80 or 90%. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'd say CADTH has they're moving in the right direction, right? I think they've been open to hearing that feedback from the various stakeholders around the table, and I know that they are even looking at setting up or supporting groups to set up registries to start to be able to capture this data, right? So I think they're moving in the right direction. The challenging sort of issue is then how do you take all this data, all this information, and incorporate it into the decision making process to ensure it's fair and balanced. So you're balancing the sort of the public good of delivering that healthcare and access, along with being fiscally responsible. It's not easy. I would never say that, but I think they're moving in the right direction. Is sort of been my experience so far with the team that's there.